Orlando on this Monday morning. See you soon.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We have news from all across the Sunshine State here as we kick off this Monday afternoon here on Florida Live. So we appreciate you joining us. Got a lot to get to coming up later in the show. We are going to talk about the Miami Marlins. They might be making a run after quite a weekend. We're going to talk with Eli Sussman about that coming up in just a little bit. We also have details from a disturbing case out of Clay County where the sheriff says a 14-year-old has admitted to killing his parents. There was a shooting overnight. We got details this morning from the Clay County Sheriff. We'll have the latest in that case and that investigation coming up in just a little bit. In our Tampa connection, a high school principal charged with cocaine possession and DUI. Nancy Gay going to have those details for us coming up in just a little bit. But we begin with another disturbing story, this one out of Pasco County, where the sheriff there just wrapped up a news conference a little bit ago giving details about a teenager arrested for charges of possession of child porn and possession of bestiality. According to investigators, this teenager was encouraging other kids to harm themselves. And this started on chats in video games like Roblox, Minecraft, many of those games that officials have been warning parents about. And that was the main message from Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nocco today, warning parents and also a word of warning to kids.
All right. Good afternoon. I want to begin by thanking our detectives for another great job in a case that's still ongoing. The FBI, JTTF, the Hillsborough Bomb Squad, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Please note this is an active and ongoing investigation. So there are things I'm going to be able to talk about. There are other things I'm not even going to be able to bring up because, we want to see where else this case takes us. We want to save other victims out there, and we want to hold those people accountable that need to be held accountable. The reason I felt compelled then, because I get it, people will say, well, if you can't talk about everything, why are you here? The reason I felt compelled today is because once you start hearing about this information, as a sheriff, as a father, when I started hearing about this case unfolding, we talked to our detectives, we talked to the FBI and said, look, when you give me the green light, I can say something, let me know. And this case went on Friday when they made the arrest. I'm here today because this is more about a warning out there. This is a warning to parents, to children, let them know about the dangers that are out there. The one thing is that we give our, we talk about stranger danger. I remember growing up, it was always that suspicious vehicle that's following you. And I get that. That's still something that's prevalent today. but we give these kids electronic devices. With these electronic devices, it's a whole new world. And I'm just telling parents out there, I'm going to hit on it later on. Please, please, please talk to your children, warn your children, because there's evil out there. Evil in the real world, evil in the cyber world. And that evil in the cyber world is much hidden, it's much more secretive, and it's one of those things that, as we'll talk about, when kids go down a rabbit hole, they don't know how to pull themselves out of it, and the dangers and the harm keeps going worse and worse. So about a month ago, the Pasco Sheriff's Office received a tip from NCMEC. There was a Discord group. On this Discord group, there was several people on there encouraging a young girl to cut herself and to harm herself. It was actually called a quote-unquote a live cut show. And so from that information, NCMEC provided us with an IP address. That IP address came back to a 12-year-old that lives in Pasco County. That 12-year-old is now 13 years old. After further investigation with this 13-year-old, we were able to discover that he had videos of child pornography to include an infant, and he had video of bestiality. So he was charged with 4 felony counts with the child pornography and the 1 felony count of possession of bestiality. The 13-year-old was also in possession and documentation of instructions for committing mass murder, other violent attacks, building bombs, and then concealing evidence. The 13-year-old also admitted that he had encouraged 2 other minors to cause harm to themselves, to cut themselves. So as this case is still ongoing. We're still working with the FBI on this case with this 13-year-old. We know there's other people out there. And I can tell you, this is not just a Pasco thing. It's not like a Florida thing. It's not a United States thing. This is a global issue that we're dealing with. So I'm here today primarily to talk to parents, grandparents, and even kids. And I get it, for parents, it's tough. It's really hard sometimes to talk to your children about these things because they don't listen to us. We grew up in a generation without cell phones. We grew up in a generation without the internet. And so they just kind of sometimes shrug their shoulders at us. Use what I'm talking about today as a lesson. Use this as an example, because I'm telling you, there's some very dangerous people out there. This is an online cult. There's no doubt about it. It's an online cult. They place no value on human life. They use satanic and neo-Nazi ideology. They idolize school shooters. That's one of the things, it's nuts. They actually idolize when people commit a mass shooting somewhere and school shooters. They encourage kids to harm themselves, or worse, to commit suicide. They actually want them to videotape it. They say videotape it, send it forward, and I'll explain why they do that. The other part is about sextortion. That is a major tool in this whole case that we see with these cults, that we see with these organizations. And then the members of this, they go back to it's a cult. It's about sharing information. They gain points, they gain notoriety, they gain reputation by the more they can get somebody else to self-harm themselves, videotape it, and then they share it. They become more of a member of that organization. They become idolized more, and they become higher up. They don't have a real rank structure, but at the same time is they become more notoriety, more gain fame for what they do. So many times, how do they get these kids? How do they get involved? How does this happen? So they go through games such as Roblox, Minecraft, or any gaming that has an online chat. So they go through that part and they just gain some rapport with that person. Then they coerce that person to do something. They bring them to another site like that Discord they were on. They go on that site. They start talking to them. They get them to start doing things such as cutting themselves. They say, hey, let's film you cutting yourself. Then what they'll also do is, hey, carve my name if I was a suspect to the victim, carve my name in your arm and videotape it and send it to me. The other one, what they'll do is they'll ask for explicit videos. And this is where sextortion comes in. Sextortion is probably one of the biggest crimes, biggest issues that we're dealing with that's not popular out there. But I will tell you, it's one of the hardest things for law enforcement that we're dealing with. Because I go back to it. This isn't like a case from Pasco County and the case stays in Pasco County. This is a case that can start in Pasco County and can go globally. We're working right now at the Department of Homeland Security on some of our sextortion cases. We're working on the FBI with cases. Please, everybody out there realize, I don't care if it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, who you think they are, do not send explicit videos. You never know where that video is going to go. That's one of the things. So what happens with this group, what they do is they will get these videos, whether it's you cutting yourself, whether it's you harming yourself, God forbid it's committing suicide, but most importantly it's the sextortion. Then they hold you captive because what they'll say is, I have this video of you committing this sexual act. If you don't do more things, I am then going to go out there and I'm going to show this to your family. I'm going to show this to your loved ones. I'm going to embarrass you unless you do these other things. So this is where we're warning people right now. Have these conversations with your kids. I go back to the biggest points we're trying to get across today. There's evil in these people out there. So parents, warn your kids. Talk to them about this case. I can't go into much details as it's ongoing, but I can tell you the things that were going on to warn the parents about. Have those conversations. Take 10 minutes. Explain to them. Tell them to put the phone down while you're talking to them. Show them this is real. This really happens in communities. Parents, you have no Fourth Amendment right to privacy. Your kids have no Fourth Amendment right. You give them a cell phone, you give them a computer, you give them stuff, you can go through it all. Make sure if they're young kids, if there are any kids, any teenagers, any age, I don't care how old they are, you have that ability on games to go on there and stop the chats, to find out directly who they're engaging with friends. Do it. I know it's a tough world to be a parent. It was tough enough, when you let them the first time to go to the park on their own, and you said, hey, don't talk to anybody, don't do this, I'm going to, I got my tracker on you, I got whatever app to find out where you are. I get that. And it gets even worse because they could be sitting next to you on a couch while you're watching a movie, and you're watching a movie, and they're engaged in something horrible. It's very tough. But I'm begging you, because what's even tougher and harder is that the fact that they become a victim, and you could have prevented it. The other part of it, too, is parents, make sure that you explain to your children that it is okay, that if something bad happens, that they can come to you. We know of cases where girls were embarrassed. They did not want to go to their parents. They did not want to talk to them. And we found out through the second or third hand of what happened. We were able to go back and backtrack and found out who the victim were. But at the same time, parents, if the kids are embarrassed and they don't want to come to you, worse things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. So make sure you explain to them that there will be no judging if something bad happens, that you'll give them a hug, you tell them it's okay, and then you notify law enforcement. Because then we're able to go forward and then help them out. And the last thing is, we got to pray. Without God in the world, this is the evil that happens. Without God in Jesus Christ, these are the things that culminate. So I ask everybody to please pray. Pray for the victims out there, but I know here's the hard part. Pray for those that are engaged in this. Because the people that are engaged in this, it's just, there's no other word. Talk about satanic cults, people that want to harm other people. They got demons in them themselves. So they will be held accountable for any crime they commit. I promise you that. This Pasco Sheriff's Office has proven year after year that we will hold people accountable for their actions. But we also recognize there's a bigger force out there, and that's our Lord Jesus Christ, to try to stop these things from happening. Because I go back to it. This world gets sicker and sicker every time you open up the paper, people read everything online now. There's no such thing as reading the paper. They go online. Every time you read online, every time you do something, you realize how much worse can this world get. But that's because we keep losing the most important thing in our lives, and that's our faith.
This is Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nocco with his a word of warning to parents and others. Hoping, that he said was the main takeaway today. Be vigilant, watch out for these things, and don't send explicit videos as well. Just a number of takeaways from that news conference just a little bit ago in Pasco County. We are going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back with more after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Thanks for having me. Today we're going to start here in Tampa, where the principal of Lato High School was arrested over the weekend. Now, Temple Terrace police, they arrested Scott Hazlett around 1:40 a.m. on Saturday morning and charged him with allegedly driving under the influence and possession of cocaine. Now, Hazlett started with the school district in 2007 at Alonzo High School as a history and psych teacher. In 2018, he led a new international school in Vietnam before coming back to Hillsborough County Schools in 2019 to work at Lato as an assistant principal. Now, he has been hailed by the district as a kind administrator who was once called on to revive a student who needed CPR. Now, schools does start next week here in Hillsborough County, and the superintendent is reassuring parents that the school will still be ready to welcome students back on day one.
Obviously very, very saddened by the news. I mean, it's something, we're here ready to get the year started here next Monday, and we're saddened by the news, but at that point in time, it's really looking out for our students and making sure that they're ready to go, the school's ready to go, so we have a plan in place.
Now, Hazlett, he was put on administrative leave following his arrest. Lato's current assistant principal will now be the school's interim principal. Garrett?
Gosh, disturbing allegations there, and again, for it to happen just before the start of school as well. Tough timing for those administrators. Story number two, and Nancy, this one, some relief for some folks in Hillsborough County.
Yes, that's right. Residents of Progress Village in Hillsborough County are finally seeing some relief as a major drainage improvement project gets underway. County officials have closed a portion of Progress Boulevard for the next 2 months to allow crews to install new stormwater infrastructure. Now, this $17.3 million project is funded by the American Rescue Plan. It includes a new stormwater drain under Ash Avenue and South 82nd Street, replacement of existing inlets and outfalls south of Progress Village, upgraded pipes to handle larger volumes of water, and a new water quality treatment pond that will flow into Archie Creek. Progress Village residents have dealt with repeated flooding, most recently during Hurricanes Helene as well as Hurricane Milton, along with 2 additional major rain events back in mid-July. Some neighbors were actually trapped inside their homes and water rescues were required. Local leaders and residents say they believe years of nearby development on higher ground has actually made this flooding worse. Progress Boulevard is expected to remain closed through early October. While the drainage project is scheduled to be finished later this year, residents say they are cautiously optimistic and they are looking ahead to 2026 to see those long-term results. Garrett?
And story number 3, and that is progress on the historic Jackson House.
Yes, that's right. The nearly 125-year-old boarding house has been sitting in ruins, and locals really want to see it restored, but it's been held up for years until the city recently stepped in. On Thursday, Tampa City Council members came to an agreement with the owner of the parking lot beside the Jackson House. They approved a resolution for an easement around the historic boarding house. Now, the Jackson House Foundation says they've been waiting for this step for 3 years. The Jackson House served one of the oldest black neighborhoods in Tampa as a boarding house since 1901 for stars like James Brown and Ella Fitzgerald. It sits in what once was a historically black neighborhood known as the Scrub, and the house provided African-American travelers a place to stay during the Jim Crow era and segregation when laws didn't allow them into white spaces. The Community Redevelopment Agency will also need to sign off on this easement in a few weeks. But the Jackson House Foundation chair said they decided earlier this year to just move forward with or without that easement. So they've been working to secure an architect as well as an engineer, and they've actually got a walkthrough planned this month. Garrett?
It obviously needs a lot of work, but I mean, you can still see the potential there and just think about what it was like back in its heyday. I mean, it would be great to see it restored.
Yeah, so it would definitely be great to see it restored. I know we've done stories with, I believe, crews that are out of USF who've gone through the building to see what can be kept of the old building while restoring it into a new building, but also keeping that history in place. I mean, this has such a historical value for Tampa, so it's really important that we keep it intact and restore it to be able to keep it as a historic landmark here in Tampa.
Yeah, you talk about that history. I mean, if walls could talk, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, some of these famous singers, I mean, we have Ella Fitzgerald used to stay there. It is so full of history. If walls could talk, there would definitely be some great stories to tell.
All right, Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Today we learned new details, some more information about a double homicide that happened overnight in Clay County. This happened in Middleburg, and according to the sheriff of Clay County, this 14-year-old boy called 911 and told dispatchers that he had killed his parents. Deputies arrived at the scene at the home where he told them to go. They did find his parents dead with gunshot wounds, while the 14-year-old boy was waiting at a nearby church about a mile away. The Clay County Sheriff Michelle Cook held a news conference this morning, talked about the details of this case, what we know, and where the investigation goes next.
And I am here this morning to report some just terribly tragic news. Just after midnight this morning, our 911 communications center received a call from a young man who stated he had just killed his parents. He stated that deputies could find his parents at the house and that he had walked just over a mile away to a church, and he would await for deputies to arrive to take him into custody. Deputies responded immediately to both locations, the church and then to a home on out here in the Middleburg area. When deputies arrived to the church, they took 14-year-old Trevor Lee into custody. When almost simultaneously deputies arrived to the address in question, they found two deceased individuals inside, David Lee, 44 years of age, and Brandy Smith, 45 years of age. Both of the deceased appeared to have gunshot wounds. Based upon our preliminary investigation, and we're still very early in this investigation, it appears that there was some sort of domestic argument last night between Trevor Lee and his parents, and that this shooting culminated from that argument. This does appear to be an isolated incident, and we have no further threat to our community at this time. Again, this is a very active scene. Our detectives are working diligently to try to figure all of this out. We do want to extend our deepest sympathies to the family, the friends, and all of those who are affected by this heartbreaking incident, and we would like to ask anybody in the community that may have some information regarding Trevor Lee or his parents to please reach out to us at 904-264-6512. And with that, I will take any questions.
Did the teen have any prior mental health history, anything like, visiting the guidance office at, school, or any therapy, any Baker Acts?
That we're looking into that. That's going to be part of the investigation. You think about this just happened at midnight last night, just after midnight, and we're here early Monday morning. So all of that is going to be looked at. His history at school, any previous contacts, we don't know right now, but that'll be part of the investigative process.
Just going by names alone, biological dad, do we have a relation with the woman?
I believe these are both his biological parents at this time. I know the father is for sure.
With different names, I was curious.
Correct.
Was it the parents' gun or was the kid's gun?
At this time, we believe it's going to be the parents' gun, but we're still, again, looking into that through, talking to him, finding out where the gun was, how he got a hold of the gun, how did he know the gun was there. The gun was recovered at the scene. He left the gun at the scene when he walked to the church to call 911.
Were they both shot just one single time, and if so, where?
That I do not know. Again, part of the investigative process.
And additionally, was there anyone else in the home, maybe a sibling who was obviously not harmed but was just in the home?
At this time, it appears that only Trevor and his parents were in the home when this incident occurred.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Again, appreciate you guys coming out, and just, again, if any citizens have any information about Trevor Lee, please give us a call, 904-264-6512, or send us a Safe Watch tip. Thank you.
Real quick, do you know if you've had any incidents at the home? Have you guys ever had to respond to the home?
I don't know the answer to that yet. That's going to be part of the investigative process. Listen, we're still early, very early in this. Detectives, our crime scene technicians are still on scene. This is very, very early in this.
As the Clay County Sheriff speaking there. Let's go ahead and listen in for a minute here as this meeting that I had in a little box there for you. This is the Justice Department's Antitrust Division, the Federal Trade Commission, the Commerce Department, and the U.S. Health and Human Services Department talking about looking at ways to reduce drug prices. Let's go ahead and listen in for a minute here live on Florida Live.
Representative Harshbarger has been working on bipartisan legislation with Senator Hassan from New Hampshire that was recently introduced late last week. The issue being brand name manufacturers can at times be able to game the drug approval and patent system by telling one story to the FDA about their new drug and telling another story to the Patent and Trademark Office, the PTO. Although FDA and PTO receive the basic information about a drug, chemistry, manufacturing, etc., manufacturers can exploit the lack of coordination between FDA and PTO and hold back information from the Patent and Trademark Office so they can seek secondary patents years later. This can lead to patent thickets that unfairly extend the product's market exclusivity, blocking biosimilar and other generic drugs from market entry years after an initial patent has expired. Representative Harshbarger is working on the bipartisan Medication Affordability and Patent Integrity Act that would put in place some simple reforms, require manufacturers to certify that when they submit initial info to the FDA and the PTO, they are not knowingly submitting conflicting or incomplete information. Failure to comply with the attestation or information disclosure requirement under the legislation could render a patent unenforceable if the patentee is found to have acted improperly in later litigation. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has estimated this will unlock more generic competition, saving taxpayers some $100 million over a decade, and likely with more out-of-pocket savings for patients as well. With respect to greater transparency, Representative Harshbarger was proud to work with the Energy and Commerce Committee in a bipartisan fashion on a number of elements of the Lower Cost, More Transparency Act, which passed the House of Representatives last session of Congress with strong bipartisan support. One of the areas Representative Harshbarger has been concerned about is the growing vertical integration of healthcare entities in Medicare and other places. Representative Harshbarger has been championing and will be reintroducing somewhat soon, promoting transparency and healthy competition in Medicare Act. The bill would require
discussing different legislation that could help with part of that effort, an initiative to reduce the prices of prescription drugs. We are going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. This afternoon, the Florida Statewide Council on Human Trafficking met. It's their third quarterly meeting of the year. They met via Zoom. They talked about the state's efforts to combat human trafficking. We heard from FDLE talking about the cost of prosecuting human trafficking. They also gave some arrest numbers as well. Heard some updates on some new laws meant to combat human trafficking as well. One of the things that we found really interesting was the discussion about the upcoming FIFA World Cup, which takes place next year at several different sites across the United States. The city of Miami is hosting 7 matches at Hard Rock Stadium there. And we know that oftentimes in big events, there's concerns over human trafficking. It's something you hear a lot about when you're talking about the Super Bowl. Certainly, the World Cup would fall under that umbrella as well. And so that was a big topic of conversation as the Statewide Council on Human Trafficking met this afternoon. Here's some of what they said.
The FIFA World Cup will be held next summer. It will begin in June and it will go for 39 days until mid-July. It will be held in 16 cities in North America. And if you're counting, that's 11 in the US, 2 in Canada, 3 in Mexico. And it's the first time that FIFA has ever had a trilateral experience like this. Usually the World Cup is held in one country. And so it's a very different experience. Just as a point of example, the last one was held in Qatar in 2022. All of the tournament was held within their space. And it was a 50-50 share between FIFA and the Qatari government as far as how the enforcement efforts, the legal efforts, the policing, that was all done by the Qatari government. FIFA just came in and brought the teams and the referees and did really the football side of it. This is the first time FIFA has ever had 100% control of the World Cup. And why I give you that background is it is going to affect how we do things like human trafficking. So as it relates to this space, what we've decided is FIFA obviously has a stance on human trafficking, which is we don't support it, right? I mean, that's a given, but it's important for the world to know. And just for relevance, the FIFA World Cup, so the Super Bowl, I was thinking World Series, wrong sport. The Super Bowl is watched by about 300 to 350 million people. Just in converse, the World Cup will be watched by about 5.3 billion people. So it's extraordinary the number of people and places that this will reach. I mean, people that probably sit in very rural areas of the world will have their iPhones and they will be watching the World Cup. So we do expect to have mostly sold out venues throughout next summer. And with that, we know that the real threat of human trafficking will follow. And what we know is we cannot lead the efforts as far as law enforcement. We need each host city to really take an active stance. So just for awareness purposes, the 16 cities that are World Cup cities all have something called host city committees. Now, these host city committees have been in place for a few years, and they're in charge of all of the fundraising efforts and really everything that goes into funding their city to host the World Cup. They'll put on the FIFA Fan Fest, which is where the majority of folks will watch the games. And it's really every city will bring together just vendors and food and excitement and passion for the matches. And the host city committee puts all of that together. They also do the funding for anything that touches the stadium in partnership with us. Why that matters? Because we lean on them to put together efforts in partnership with law enforcement. So what FIFA has done is we realized we're going to be the point of the sphere, and we're going to be the convener to bring these 16 host cities together and basically say, hey, host cities, we do believe, based on training and experience, that human trafficking is going to be a problem. We do believe that there's going to be the trail that goes from one city to the next, and we've seen it time and time again. It affects sporting event after sporting event, and we are very confident that the World Series is going to be, the World Cup is going to be no different. So what we've done is we have a comprehensive human trafficking prevention program that we've put together. This program will seek the participation of member, leader, and representatives of police departments, not just in the host cities, but within the neighboring cities, because even though we only have 16 host cities, we have over 480 locations that will be touched by World Cup venues. It will be the hotels that the teams stay at, the hotels that the referees stay at, the practice stadiums, the team base camps. There's all of these different locations that are sprinkled throughout North America that also have to have an awareness and take active participation in this human trafficking prevention. Look, we believe that this initiative is critical, a component for the broader World Cup sustainability and human rights strategy. So Matt Mullen, my partner in this effort, is the head of human rights, and FIFA sees sex trafficking and human trafficking under the umbrella of human rights. Now, I do come from the safety and security section of FIFA, but we have partnered in this instance to bring human rights and safety and security together to ensure that human rights are upheld throughout all phases of the tournament. And our plan really centers on human trafficking roundtables, which will convene all of the host cities of the 3 nations alongside other key stakeholders to include private sector. We'll have federal, state, local government, and law enforcement officials. We'll have anybody from the government side of it that wants to be a part of it, lawmakers. I've been working for over a decade now with Senator Catherine Cortez Masto out of the great state of Nevada, which is actually my home state. And she has really led these efforts, as many of you probably know. And we've been to DC up to the Hill a few times to meet with her and her staff to really make sure they understand and they're supporting the efforts that we push forward. So we've invited them to be a part of our roundtables as well. We will convene all of these roundtables as locally led anti-trafficking measures for future large-scale sporting events as well, because next year after the World Cup is over, my position will cease to exist. FIFA USA is a subsidiary of FIFA of a whole, which is based in Zurich. So after the World Cup is over, we are hoping to leave this legacy product of best practices. So the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, all of the other major sporting leagues can take this human trafficking best practices document and look at it for major sporting events and use some of the things that we found works really well and maybe avoid things that didn't work as well. And what we're really going to do is, as we convene these host cities together, we've hired Safe Cities Network, and we've hired a trauma psychotherapist. Her name is Dr. Haleh Sadigzia. Many of you might have worked with her because she's very prominent in this space all over the world. We have brought them together as our conveners because we can't lead the effort. We can just bring folks together, being that we're a private entity. And we've asked SEN, led by in partnership with Dr. Haleh Sadigzia, and SCN is led by Eric Rosen, and we've asked them to come together and basically take to the host cities and say, hey, host cities, when you put together enforcement plans on a law enforcement angle, what did you find worked best and how did you do it? And have the host cities present. Once you get the victim out of these circumstances, what nonprofit organizations, what groups came together and really helped that victim with wraparound services, and how did you do it? When it comes to the laws, what laws do you have in place, both on a city, state, and local level, and what federal laws do you use to really support your efforts, and how did you do it? And we take all of these 3 things and put them together as best practices. Now, in partnership with that, I would like to offer that every city is formatted differently, obviously, and every city has different needs. What we saw in Las Vegas will be very different than what something like Kansas City might see, or Toronto, or Vancouver. So it is not a one-size-fits-all model, and we're very much aware of that, which is why we want these conveners to bring people together and allow them to mold the best practices to fit their cities in the best way possible.
That FIFA official speaking in front of the Florida Human Trafficking Council at their virtual meeting earlier this afternoon. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back with more after this. So keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. The hot streak continues for the Miami Marlins. What a weekend it was for them. They swept the New York Yankees. They are now back at 555 wins and 55 losses. And here to break down that and a whole lot more is Eli Sussman, the founder of Fish on First. And Eli, thanks for joining us again here on Florida Live.
Thrilled to be back on with you, Garrett. A whole lot to talk about here.
A whole lot to talk about. First of all, just kind of give me your initial thoughts on where things stand here. Did you think the Marlins would be back at 500 at this point at the season when we're looking earlier and 16 games under at one point?
Yeah, no, I did not. This is a pretty unique turnaround that only happens, depending on how you break it down. It's been about 11 years since a team that was so far under 500 made it at least to this point of being even wins and losses. And they've just done it pretty steadily, just consistently winning series against almost every opponent they faced. This past weekend was their 6th straight series victory. But it feels like this is the moment where the larger baseball viewing public is starting to take notice of what's going on, just because of how authoritatively they beat a seemingly superior Yankees team this past weekend, being able to win all 3 of those games. The fact that they've just been so consistent on both sides of the ball, and they've done it now without really making significant additions from outside the organization. This is a team that's very reliant on the youngest team in baseball, relying on a lot of inexperienced players and guys that just don't have much of a track record at the big league level. And the fact that so many of these players are sustaining what they were doing early in the year, and in a lot of cases simply getting better than ever as the year goes on. So much credit has to go to those players and everybody involved with this coaching staff, this front office, that they are defying any reasonable expectations that people had for the Marlins.
Eli, I want to talk about Kyle Stowers. He was the National League Player of the Month for July. How much has he meant to this kind of turnaround for this team?
I remember bringing up Stowers the first time that I was on this program with you a few months ago. He got off to a relatively hot start to the year, and then there was a lull in the middle of it that just lasted a few weeks. But he's been indispensable now for this last month and a half or so, ever since the second half of June. Yeah, it even started before July. He gets the accolades for what he's done in July, but even before that, that's when he really started tapping into his power yet again, now up to 25 home runs overall this season. The Marlins have only had a handful of hitters in their history that consistently hit for this kind of power that he's shown, not only to the pull side, but even this past weekend, hit a really crucial grand slam to the opposite field that capped off their biggest comeback of the season. That has been a shock that he's been able to demonstrate that power to both fields. And he's been the rock in the middle of their lineup for a guy that struggled so immensely last year when they acquired him originally from Baltimore down the stretch of last season. But now he is genuinely one of the very best hitters in baseball. And who knows how long it's going to last, but we're now pretty deep into this year, and he's already up to 25 homers. It's in a way where it's been magical, the kind of turnaround that he's had from one year to the other. He has single-handedly made a pretty big difference between them being a classic rebuilding team and one that is still kind of hanging on the periphery of the wild card race with less than 2 months to go.
Yeah, we knew there was a chance the Marlins could deal Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez. They didn't. What did you make of that?
Yuri Perez, not so much. That's the one guy that I felt was close to untouchable with this team. The real intrigue was around both Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera, both of them guys that have immense potential as starting pitchers. We've already seen, of course, with Sandy having been a former Cy Young Award winner, and he's in a situation contractually where people thought maybe the Marlins would be under pressure to unload his salary also in the middle of a year where he has not been performing well at all. I think ultimately it was just difficult to agree on how to value that type of player between what the Marlins reasonably would have wanted in return to feel comfortable and also what other contending teams really thought they were going to get out of Sandy the rest of this season when his performance has been so uneven. So the team did have conversations with several teams about him, but I don't think anything got especially close just because of how complicated it is to try to decide who he is at this stage of his career when it's been a couple seasons since he's actually been an impact top of the rotation starter. But thankfully for the Marlins, he has been improving as the summer has gone on. So that gives them some faith that he could actually help them continue to stay in the mix as we go down the stretch. With Edward Cabrera, that's the one where performance-wise, he's been very valuable to them this season. And this was an opportunity seemingly to sell high on him if they really wanted to. This is by far his most consistent season of his major league career. he's another player where it's sort of difficult to put a finger on what he's worth and what he's going to be moving forward, just because he's battled injuries basically every single season of his career to this point, and a lot of inconsistencies with throwing strikes prior to 2025. And they just reached a situation where they're just not under pressure to make those trades, because all their players, with few exceptions, are still multiple years away from free agency. That is one of the luxuries of being so young, is that you have time to make these decisions. And even though fans want to see action at the deadline, I think there's a pretty substantial segment of the fan base that wanted to see this team that was playing so well heading into the trade deadline basically keep the group together moving forward. And that's what they ultimately did. So they have some very interesting decisions to make as soon as this offseason in terms of potentially looking at other trade possibilities to shake things up. But right now, if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. And they've been playing just so well dating back almost 2 months to this point.
Still 6 games back of the wild card, but another you keep the hot streak going, and they could still be right back in that conversation, which is just kind of hard to believe. How do they contend? How do they make a run for that for one of those spots?
I'll give you a couple keys. The one that sticks out is Agustin Ramirez. He's been their rookie that has quickly formed a formidable 1-2 punch with Kyle Stowers in the middle of their lineup. A nice right-handed complement to Stowers. He leads all National League rookies in home runs and RBIs and a bunch of other counting stats. But defensively, as a catcher, it's been a struggle for him this year. And the Marlins made an interesting trade. One of the few moves they did make was send their veteran catcher, Nick Fortes, to the Rays to clear up more room for Ramirez to catch more consistently. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him in order to improve on what he's been doing defensively down the stretch, because there are a lot of close games that can be decided by how he does in terms of blocking pitches in the dirt and controlling the running game. And they've been able to win a lot in spite of that to this point. But now the magnifying glass is going to be squarely on him coming down the stretch, not only offensively, but what he does behind the plate. So there's going to be pressure on him to improve in order for them to continue to eke out as many close wins as they have so far this season. Other than that, they've kind of one spot in their starting rotation that has been a little bit shaky. I talked about Sandy and Edward Cabrera. They've gotten great performances from Yuri Perez, who you brought up, and then even from Cal Quantrill, who is, I guess, the graybeard of this group at 30 years old. He's been surprisingly consistent as this year has gone on. And so the question is, can they get enough production from the number 5 spot in the rotation? Do they have somebody that can step up in case any of those other guys get injured down the stretch? Which odds are somebody is going to miss time due to some minor concern down the stretch. Do they have enough rotation depth to make it through the end of the year? So the one guy that I'm looking at in the minors is Robbie Snelling, who is this left-handed pitcher, widely regarded now as one of the top 100 prospects in baseball and rapidly climbing. He's done really well at the highest levels of the minors this season. So he is a guy where the team has an interesting decision to make. Only 21 years old. If they brought him up, he'd be the youngest pitcher in baseball. But you could make the case that he's already ready to contribute in some form or fashion. I think a question is going to be the team's willingness to call him up. It's the complicated line they're trying to walk between doing all they can to be competitive down the stretch of the season, but also realizing that their real window to be a championship contender probably opens next year. That decision on if they're going to call up Robbie Snelling and how they might use him to really tighten up their pitching staff all the way around, that's something that I see as a key coming down the stretch.
All right, it is certainly exciting to see them playing hot, and it's got to make you excited for the future, even if things don't pan out this season. Nice to see these glimpses of what they're capable of. Eli Sussman, the founder of Fish on First, always good talking the Marlins with you, and we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Thanks a lot for having me.
And one more quick note as we go to break here. It was a series attendance record. The Yankees always a big draw, but check out Lone Depot Park, just rocking 101,545 people for the 3 games, including their first back-to-back sellouts at Lone Depot Park as well. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is August. We are a month away from the start of Howl-O-Scream at SeaWorld Orlando. And today we got a lot of brand new details about what that Halloween-themed event is going to look like. And earlier today I spoke with Theron White, the lead publisher of EYNTK.info, who broke down what we know and how you can plan for it.
Yeah, Howl-O-Scream Orlando is entering its 5th year. So if you had been any of the years previous, all of the icons, the main characters of the event were all the sirens. So there was all these siren sisters, like a full sisterhood that would take over the park, and they changed the houses and some of the entertainment based on that. Now, as we're entering our 5th year, we're getting a brand new icon. His name is Havoc, and with him, we're going to have some scare zones. We're going to have a brand new show, and then they're also going to have a ton of new haunted houses and new things to experience as well. So if you liked the event before, there's going to be brand new stuff for you to do, and they're bringing back some classic favorites.
Theron, talk to us about what we know about these haunted houses.
So there's going to be 3 new haunted houses. They just announced this, so for anyone watching, I got to read all this. We've got the Widow's Nest, the Collector's Curse, and the Raveyard. The Raveyard is the one that stands out to me the most. You're going to be basically entering into a graveyard with a bunch of music and lights and strobes and all that stuff. So it's going to be like if EDC meets the underworld as you're going through there. So I think that's going to be a really, really exciting and fun house, because not every haunted house needs to be just in the pitch black dark with jump scares. Sometimes just the idea and the vibes of it is the most fun. So of those 3 new ones, that's definitely my favorite. And then returning is also my favorite that they have ever done at the event. It's Farm 51. It's basically like what you think of in the 1950s when they had like the aliens coming down to attack the poor farmhouse. We've got the, the gray and the green aliens, and they're very signature old school cartoon looking spaceships and stuff like that, and they're taking over. So I love that because it's a little weird, but its weirdness is what I love so much.
What about the scare zones? 4 new scare zones announced too.
Yeah, we've got one called the Ashes of the Forgotten, the Woodrot Hallow, the Echoes of the Glass, and the Trailer Park Tragedy. So a scare zone, for anyone that doesn't go to one of these events, a scare zone is basically kind of like a walk-through haunted house experience, but it's not going to have any wait times. So as you're going to different rides, going to the themed bars, going to the different haunted houses or the shows, you're walking through these areas, and characters are going to be all mixed in throughout. So you'll see some of the props and stuff that's set out, but they're always going to be out there, so no wait times, and you can kind of chill in that area if you want to watch other people get scared, which is always a fun part of any Halloween event.
All right, that's certainly true. Also, a new show.
Yeah, we've got a new throttle show. This is going to be replacing the Siren. So if you've been in there in the past, they had this kind of 360-degree show, and during that, they'd have the Sirens come out and do a full experience. It would look like they grabbed one of the guests. They had like a plant inside of the group, and they would grab one of those people and take them away. And now we're getting a brand new throttle show, which is going to be with Havoc and his Nightmare Riders as they are tearing through portals to come and get us. They don't give a ton of details about that, but if it's going to be in that same area, you can expect it to be pretty immersive. And we've got this all new icon, so of course they're really going to spruce it up for that show. And then they're also bringing back a fan favorite. It's been here all 4 years, and it's coming back yet again. It's called Monster Stomp. It's a really fun musical. It's inside. It's got a murderous theme, and it's got a lot of pop music in there. That one's really high energy, and it's always usually pretty easy to grab a spot. It's a very large theater. So if you want some air conditioning, I know even in the afternoons and the evenings here in Florida it can get hot. You got some air conditioning, you've got a great show, and it fits the theme.
Let's talk about the food, because I know there are some menu items that sound really good.
Yeah, they have a bunch of these themed bars, and you can go there, and they've got even the bartenders themselves are going to like have full makeup and everything done. Some of the food that they've announced is going to be the Nightmare Nachos, the Monster Munch Mac and Cheese, Zombie Tacos, and Dracula Inside Out Sliders. They've also got some sampling lanyards there. If you're someone that wants to just go there for the food, maybe you don't like haunted houses, but you want to see the shows and go on the rides at night, they have a sample lanyard so you can go and grab a bunch of these food, different items, and then you can be the person eating one of these delicious food items and laughing at the other people getting scared in the scare zones, however you want to do it.
And so that is certainly another option there, a lot to offer coming up at Howl-O-Scream Orlando at SeaWorld. Which starts September 5th, so I believe that would be a month from tomorrow. Meanwhile, in just a few weeks, Halloween Horror Nights kicking off at the Universal. A lot going on at the theme parks. We talked about more of that with Theron as well, including the upcoming closure of Rip Ride Rocket at the Universal, and also the Buzz Lightyear ride closing down at Magic Kingdom as of today for a major refurbishment. So you can see that whole full conversation with Theron about all the theme park latest right now on Fox Local. That's going to do it for us here on Florida Live. We will see you right back here tomorrow at 2 on Fox Local. Have a great afternoon.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We have news from all across the Sunshine State here as we kick off this Monday afternoon here on Florida Live. So we appreciate you joining us. Got a lot to get to coming up later in the show. We are going to talk about the Miami Marlins. They might be making a run after quite a weekend. We're going to talk with Eli Sussman about that coming up in just a little bit. We also have details from a disturbing case out of Clay County where the sheriff says a 14-year-old has admitted to killing his parents. There was a shooting overnight. We got details this morning from the Clay County Sheriff. We'll have the latest in that case and that investigation coming up in just a little bit. In our Tampa connection, a high school principal charged with cocaine possession and DUI. Nancy Gay going to have those details for us coming up in just a little bit. But we begin with another disturbing story, this one out of Pasco County, where the sheriff there just wrapped up a news conference a little bit ago giving details about a teenager arrested for charges of possession of child porn and possession of bestiality. According to investigators, this teenager was encouraging other kids to harm themselves. And this started on chats in video games like Roblox, Minecraft, many of those games that officials have been warning parents about. And that was the main message from Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nocco today, warning parents and also a word of warning to kids.
Right. Good afternoon. I want to begin by thanking our detectives for another great job in a case that's still ongoing. The FBI, JTTF, the Hillsborough Bomb Squad, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Please note this is an active and ongoing investigation. So there are things I'm going to be able to talk about. There are other things I'm not even going to be able to bring up because, you know, we want to see where else this case takes us. We want to save other victims out there, and we want to hold those people accountable that need to be held accountable. The reason I felt compelled then, because I get it, people will say, well, if you can't talk about everything, why are you here? The reason I felt compelled today is because once you start hearing about this information, as a sheriff, as a father, you know, when I started hearing about this case unfolding, you know, we talked to our detectives, we talked to the FBI and said, look, when you give me the green light, I can say something, let me know. And this case went on Friday when they made the arrest. I'm here today because this is more about a warning out there. This is a warning to parents, to children, let them know about the dangers that are out there. The one thing is that we give our, you know, we talk about stranger danger. I remember growing up, you know, it was always that suspicious vehicle that's following you. And I get that. That's still something that's prevalent today. But we give these kids electronic devices. With these electronic devices, it's a whole new world. And I'm just telling parents out there, I'm going to hit on it later on. Please, please, please talk to your children, warn your children. Because there's evil out there. Evil in the real world, evil in the cyber world. And that evil in the cyber world is much hidden. It's much more secretive. And it's one of those things that, as we'll talk about, when kids go down a rabbit hole, they don't know how to pull themselves out of it, and the dangers and the harm keeps going worse and worse. So about a month ago, the Pasco Sheriff's Office received a tip from NCMEC. There was a Discord group. On this Discord group, there was several people on there encouraging a young girl to cut herself and to harm herself. It was actually called a quote-unquote a live cut show. And so from that information, NCMEC provided us with an IP address. That IP address came back to a 12-year-old that lives in Pasco County. That 12-year-old is now 13 years old. After further investigation with this 13-year-old, we were able to discover that he had videos of child pornography to include an infant, and he had video of bestiality. So he was charged with 4 felony counts. with the child pornography and the 1 felony count of possession of bestiality. The 13-year-old was also in possession and documentation of instructions for committing mass murder, other violent attacks, building bombs, and then concealing evidence. The 13-year-old also admitted that he had encouraged 2 other minors to cause harm to themselves, to cut themselves. So as this case is still ongoing. We're still working with the FBI on this case with this 13-year-old. We know there's other people out there. I can tell you, this is not just a Pasco thing. It's not like a Florida thing. It's not a United States thing. This is a global issue that we're dealing with. So I'm here today primarily to talk to parents, grandparents, and new kids. And I get it, for parents, it's tough. It's really hard sometimes to talk to your children about these things because they don't listen to us. We grew up in a generation without cell phones. We grew up in a generation without the internet. And so they just kind of sometimes shrug their shoulders at us. Use what I'm talking about today as a lesson. Use this as an example, because I'm telling you, there's some very dangerous people out there. This is an online cult. There's no doubt about it. It's an online cult. They place no value on human life. They use satanic and neo-Nazi ideology. They idolize school shooters. That's one of the things, it's nuts. They actually idolize when people commit a mass shooting somewhere and school shooters. They encourage kids to harm themselves, or worse, to commit suicide. They actually want them to videotape it. They say videotape it, send it forward, and I'll explain why they do that. The other part is about sextortion. That is a major tool in this whole case that we see with these cults, that we see with these organizations. And then the members of this, they go back to it's a cult. It's about sharing information. They gain points, they gain notoriety, they gain reputation by the more they can get somebody else to self-harm themselves, videotape it, and then they share it. They become more of a member of that organization. They become idolized more, and they become higher up. They don't have a real rank structure, but at the same time is they become more notoriety, more gain fame for what they do. So many times, how do they get these kids? How do they get involved? How does this happen? So they go through games such as Roblox, Minecraft, or any gaming that has an online chat. So they go through that part and they just gain some rapport with that person. Then they coerce that person to do something. They bring them to another site like that Discord they were on. They go on that site. They start talking to them. They get them to start doing things such as cutting themselves. They say, hey, let's film you cutting yourself. Then what they'll also do is, hey, carve your name, carve my name. If I was a suspect to the victim, carve my name in your arm and videotape it and send it to me. The other one, what they'll do is they'll ask for explicit videos. And this is where sextortion comes in. Sextortion is probably one of the biggest crimes, biggest issues that we're dealing with that's not popular out there. But I will tell you, it's one of the hardest things for law enforcement that we're dealing with. Because I go back to it. This isn't like a case from Pasco County and the case stays in Pasco County. This is a case that can start in Pasco County and can go globally. We're working right now at the Department of Homeland Security on some of our sextortion cases. We're working on the FBI with cases. Please, everybody out there realize, I don't care if it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, who you think they are, do not send explicit videos. You never know where that video is going to go. That's one of the things. So what happens with this group, what they do is they will get these videos, whether it's you cutting yourself, whether it's you harming yourself, God forbid it's committing suicide, but most importantly it's a sextortion. Then they hold you captive because what they'll say is, I have this video of you committing this sexual act. If you don't do more things, I am then going to go out there and I'm going to show this to your family. I'm going to show this to your loved ones. I'm going to embarrass you unless you do these other things. So this is where we're warning people right now. Have these conversations.